Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Steve King. Down goes Steve King. Now, this is Iowa's Congressman Steve King, who was just defeated yesterday in a Republican primary. Wow. So now this is former Iowa State Senator Randy Feenstra, who had defeated King to earn the GOP nomination in Iowa's 4th Congressional District, according to the New York Times. Now, Feenstra will be going against Democrat J.D. Scholten in the general election in November. So now there's reasons, of course, that Steve King lost this primary. Very important reasons. We've been talking about Steve King on the show for quite some time. So now Steve King, open white supremacist. I'm sorry, white nationalist. He wants to make a distinction, right? Now, he didn't think, though, that being a white supremacist or a white nationalist was a bad thing. In fact, back in January, King, during a New York Times interview, while he was talking about immigration, he said this, quote, "White nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization, how did that language become offensive? Why did I sit in classes teaching me about the merits of our history and our civilization?" Well, look, that's kind of what happens, right? To the victor, like the victors kind of get to write their own history. Which, you know what, it doesn't quite work that way in the South, I've noticed, because, when it comes to history books in the Civil War, they're now being written with the South's perspective far more than the actual victors. And the problem is, of course, with that is that they're saying, oh, no, the slaves? No, they were helpers. No, they were slaves. Slaves are slaves. Understand, right? And so that's the problem with that. But anyway, how exactly is being a white supremacist not offensive? Well, to Steve King, being a white supremacist it's just everyday life. It's, it's how he rolls, right? But here's the thing. He's been pushing this kind of stuff for decades. Understand, this is not a new development. We didn't just find out that Steve King was a racist POS. No, he's been that way for a very, very long time. And yet, over and over again, the 4th District in Iowa, they voted for him overwhelmingly by sometimes 20 points. So what changed? Well, I mean, look, one thing is J.D. Scholten, right? And so J.D. Scholten is an incredibly strong contender for that seat. In fact, back in 2018, Scholten nearly defeated Steve King, lost to him by 3 percentage points, and this time says, okay, well, now I got name recognition in the district. Now I have national media attention. So now I'm going to take on this guy once again. This time I'm going to win. And so that's the situation, right? And he's backed by Democracy for America. I believe the local chapters of Our Revolution, possibly the national group, Our Revolution backed him. He's raised tons and tons of money. And so he was in a really good position to take out Steve King, which scared the crap out of Republicans because this is a Republican seat. And so not only has Scholten been an incredibly strong challenger to King, but King, of course, kept bringing on controversy. In fact, HuffPost had found that King had traveled to Austria and gave an in-person interview with a neo-fascist publication in which he discussed a conspiracy theory called the Great Replacement. So, look, that is, again, it basically says that foreign people, Mexicans, are coming over and they're having kids. They're going to replace white people and take over. That is a conspiracy theory espoused by white supremacists and white nationalists and a former sitting member of Congress. So understand how dangerous that is, right? King also promoted neo-Nazis on Twitter, endorsed a white nationalist candidate for mayor of Toronto, had also spoke to, what is it, Geers Wilter or whatever. This guy who was, an open white supremacist over in Europe. And so he also said things like, we're not going to rebuild our civilization with other people's babies. And by that, he means white civilization. And so he said a lot of horrible things, horribly racist things. And just recently, when he's getting all this attention, right? That's when Republicans say, "Oh God, he's a liability now." And it was, again, the near victory of J.D. Scholten, which shook them from their complacency. They said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this," right? We're going to have a Democrat win that district because Steve King is too overtly racist, and not low-key racist, but too racist, right? And so understand that that's the issue here. These are the beliefs that you're not supposed to say out loud in the Republican Party. And look, under Trump, of course, it's been a little bit more normalized. But now people are kind of sick of it. And now Republicans have seen that this is a liability in elections. And so they're like, shut it down, lower it, right? Bring back the coded language. Don't be so outright and open with your white supremacy. And again, I say that now because for the last few decades, Steve King has openly has been this way and has won for quite some time with a gigantic majority of Republican votes. But now, again, he's gotten himself in too much trouble by getting a real challenger. And look, in the upcoming election, understand that Feenstra's still a Republican, right? He's still a conservative. He might not be just as bad, but again, he might be fairly still bad. So I don't necessarily know. But this race, I mean, it's going to come down now to Scholten versus Feenstra. And I don't know what's going to happen in that race now. It still should be pretty interesting. Scholten has name recognition for taking on King. That's real. That's relevant. But with King defeated, is the media going to pay attention to this race? I think so. I hope so. Because again, this is a massively Republican district. And the possibility of flipping it to a Democratic seat, that's going to be, I think, a fairly big story. But with all that aside, of course, at least we can finally say goodbye to Steve King. Thank goodness. Good riddance to garbage. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.